Hello everyone watching at home, you're with Sarvin McClinton from Adelaide Eternal, bringing you another 7-minute 7-point series deck tech. It is Highlander season, so all of the new decks are being brought to you through the Highlander series, and this particular one is called Gruul Moon. This is a deck that I developed that has been performing really well against the top tier decks, and it is a budget deck. So it actually, well, let's get the budget aspect out of the way. We've got Survival of the Fittest, this is about $60, and we have Tiger, which is about $100. And these two cards are essential for the deck, but owning them is great because they're on the reserve list, so keep them and keep brewing with them for the rest of your Highlander career. We have a Badlands in there, which is a little bit more expensive. However, it's not essential to the deck because it's just there for Deathrite Shaman Drain activation, which you can do off a bop anyway. And Varolz, a Scar-Striped hard cast from your hand. Most of the time, you're just going to be tutoring from this guy because he's a green creature. So you don't really have to worry about this. This could easily be a Basic Mountain, or it could be a Shockland, the Badlands 2.0. Alright, let's look at how the deck actually ticks. So we have lock pieces, and this is why it's called Gruul Moon. We have a Moon that is designed to be deployed on turn 2, because you play a Mana Dork and then just play this. And if you're on the play, the Sun works just as well, if not better than the Moons, because it shuts off 9 fetch lands in opposing decks that run 3 colours. If it doesn't do that because it's played later in the game, it cantrips, which is absolutely awesome in a deck that doesn't run blue. So once you've locked your opponent out of the game, then how do you win the game? Well, it's just a matter of playing one of these win cons, and one of them could be Chandra Torch of Defiance, which is just the red Jace the Mind Sculptor. You've also got Rurik Thar the Unbowed, which is your tutor target for Natural Order because it's green. And this could easily be Progenitus or something like that. That's perfectly fine. However, I like this guy because you can actually hardcast him quite often on turn 4 or 5. Titania, of course, is a mainstay green finisher in the format. So if one of these guys doesn't just knock your opponent out, then you've also got this entire package here of value. So first of all, Vengevine. He's right here at the top because he works amazing wonders with Survival of the Fittest. Bloodbraid Elf is also fantastic at triggering Vengevine, and there are dream plays that you can have where you play Survival of the Fittest, and then later on, at the end of your opponent's turn, you discard a Mana Dork here and you tutor for Vengevine, and then you discard Vengevine and you tutor for Bloodbraid Elf. Then you go to your turn, and on an empty board where your opponent didn't realise that they were just going to die, you go Bloodbraid Elf, cascade into Strangleroot Geist, return Vengevine, and attack for 9 haste. So that's just an example of the crazy things that you get to do with Survival, but even if things don't work out like Magical Christmas Land, like the Bloodbraid into cascading Strangleroot Geist, there are so many ways that you can simply trigger Vengevine from the graveyard, like Eternal Witness, returning just another creature that you want to play the creature, and then return Vengevine and attack for 4. Then you have Huntmaster of the Fells, which is really, really cool in picking off opposing Mana Dorks and the like when it flips, and also just grinding out value, and is a must answer for your control opponent. They can't just sit back and leave it on the battlefield. Speaking of control, Sylvan Library is fantastic against control opponents, and Ramunap Excavator pairs really nicely with your Strip Mine Wasteland package. Then we have Scavenging Ooze, which is great against, obviously, those pesky Reanimator opponents, but also it's just a massive beater. So let's look at the other way the deck can win. So other than locking your opponent out, or just playing the value game, you have actually a combo finish. And this is a way to surprise your opponent when you're playing red-green and they go, I don't know what you're playing. But then you go, guess what? I'm a combo deck. So you get to play the Melira combo where you go infinite with a sack outlet and a Kitchen Finks, infinite life, or Murderous Redcap, infinite damage. Your sack outlet is Varolz, and this guy is actually played because he's a green creature, which allows you to get him off Green Sun, Zenith, and Natural Order, which you can't normally get Viscera Seer or Carrion Feeder off. Also, he's much easier to pod into because he's a 3-drop, whereas podding into Carrion Feeder or some such would involve you sacking the 1 Dried Arbor in the deck. So it's actually really synergistic in this deck. Then we have the obviously Natural Order for Rurik Thar, one of the big beasties. And then we have the Chord of Calling, which allows you to assemble end of turn crazy shenanigans, untap, and then combo win. Fauna Shaman and Survival of the Fittest, amazing survival strategies involved here, where you can turn, 2 Mana Dorks into 2 amazing threats, or into the other pieces of a combo and win. Last of all, we have our removal package here, so a little bit of interaction with Misstep, some bolts, Garruk, which is basically a bolt with some extra value attached, and then we have Punishing Fire, which pairs up with Grove of the Burn Willows, giving you this kind of lands feel to your creature opponents, where you just get to machine gun down their creatures. Also note that Blood Sun doesn't actually affect your Grove of the Burn Willows, and is a really cool interaction, allowing you to keep that game plan. Last of all, we have Rec Sage and Thrashing Brontodon to get rid of your artifacts and enchantments that your opponents have. But one really cool thing here is Thrashing Brontodon is a new printing that allows us to stop having to always pair green with white. Khazali Pride Mage was so powerful in Highlander, but now that we have this, it's sure, it's not as powerful as Khazali Pride Mage, but that's actually debatable. When you have a 3/4, which doesn't get killed by Bolt, and just bashes face nicely, but blocks really nicely, which Khazali Pride Mage can't do. So let's have a look at the sideboard. When you look at your creature matchup, you're actually quite good. Aside from your opponent playing some mana dorks and getting around your blood moons, usually you get to really hate on your opponent's mana base, because a lot of the creature decks in the format are quite soft to moon effects. Then we have a very small number of cards you get to bring in against them, but they're really high impact. Wrath effects, Phyrexian Revoker turns off, say, a pesky Elspeth Knight Errant, and Hull Breach almost always gets you a 2-for-1, which is fantastic. Against control, you have the must-answer threats of Thrun, which basically is impossible for them to answer unless they have a Wrath. Vexing Shusher protects your combos and your big beasties. And then you have Choke as well. These protect those things, and then we'll turn our attention to the anti-combo stuff. This is where the deck is weak, and that's why we need to run this Moon package. Against combo decks, all you want to do is just make sure that you mull to 6 or 5, where you get to deploy a Blood Moon type effect on turn 2. And if you can't do that, then you can also mull into these great cards that are pinpoint removal for your opponent's decks. For example, Graveyard Hate, you can up it, put in Relic of Progenitus or something if you have a lot of Reanimator in your meta. Null Rod as well, and then you've got the Anti-Storm package. I put these in because you're weak to Storm, so if you can't get a Moon effect, you can get one of these really hateful pieces that hate on your Storm opponents. So if you like the deck, sleeve it up, tell me what you think of Gruul Moon. It's a whole lot of fun, and surprise your opponents with survival and not playing blue. This budget deck is a force to be reckoned with. Enjoy!